December 25th, 1989, Christmas Day, a military base in Târgoviște, Romania. Gunshots echo across the courtyard. Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu crumple against a concrete wall. Blood spreads across the dirt. The dictator who ruled Romania for 24 years is dead. His wife beside him. Both executed by firing squad. Cameras capture everything. Within hours, the footage airs on Romanian television. The Ceausescus are gone. But as Romanians celebrate in the streets, three people are conspicuously absent from the images. Valentin, Zoya, Nicu, the children. Where were they when their parents faced the bullets? What happened to them in the chaos that followed? And how do you survive when your surname becomes the most hated word in the country? This is the story of three lives, defined entirely by a name they couldn't escape. Before we go further, understand this. What you're about to hear isn't speculation. This is documented history, court records, prison testimonies, interviews conducted over 3 decades. The children of dictators occupy a strange space in history. Not quite innocent, not quite guilty. Their fates reveal uncomfortable truths about inherited guilt and the aftermath of tyranny. If we don't share these stories, we forget that revolutions don't just topple leaders. They consume entire families. So hit subscribe, make sure these lessons stay loud. The story begins not in 1989, but 24 years earlier. When Nicolae Ceaușescu seized power in 1965, he initially presented himself as a reformer. Romania established diplomatic relations with West Germany, denounced the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. For a moment, Romania seemed poised to chart an independent course within the communist bloc. Western leaders praised Ceaușescu. He visited the United States, met with presidents, was awarded honorary degrees. But by the 1972, any promise of liberalization had evaporated. Ceaușescu built a personality cult rivaling North Korea's Kim Il-sung. His portrait hung everywhere. In classrooms, factories, government buildings, homes. State media called him the genius of the Carpathians, the conductor. His wife Elena, despite limited formal education, was celebrated as a world-renowned scientist. Her name appeared on scientific papers she'd never written. She received honorary doctorates from universities terrified to refuse. Behind this cult of personality lay a brutal security apparatus. The Securitate. Secret police who turned neighbor against neighbor. Children informed on parents. Teachers reported students. Dissent was crushed with systematic efficiency. By the 1980s, Ceausescu's economic policies had reduced Romania to desperate poverty. Determined to pay off foreign debt, he exported everything. Food, fuel, medicine. Everything Romania produced went abroad while Romanians faced severe food shortages, electricity rationing, unheated apartments during freezing winters. All while the Ceausescu family lived in unimaginable luxury. Multiple palaces, imported delicacies, heated pools, private hunting reserves. The contrast was obscene. And at the center of this privileged world were 3 children who had known nothing else. Music. Valentin Ceaușescu, born 1948, the eldest. By most accounts, the least involved in politics. He pursued nuclear physics, earned a legitimate doctorate, worked in research. Unlike his siblings, Valentin maintained a relatively low profile. But he wasn't completely removed from power structures. Member of the Central Committee of the Romanian Communist Party, chairman of Romania's Football Federation, control over Steaua Bucharest, the army's football club that won the European Cup in 1986. He married 3 times. First to Iodana Borila, daughter of another high-ranking communist official. Later to Tamara Doreanu. Finally to Roxana Andreescu. Valentin was seen as the normal Ceausescu, someone attempting to forge his own path outside his father's shadow. But that path was still paved with privileges ordinary Romanians couldn't imagine. Zoya Ceaușescu, born 1949, the only daughter, another intellectual. She pursued mathematics, earned a doctorate, worked at the Institute of Mathematics of the Romanian Academy. Among the 3 children, Zoya developed the most independent reputation. Reports suggest she occasionally criticized her parents' policies, but only in private, only quietly. never publicly. Her relationship with Elena was strained. Her mother allegedly disapproved of Zoya's lifestyle, her choices, her refusal to play the perfect daughter. Zoya married Mircea Oprian, an engineer, maintained a lower public profile than her brothers. But she couldn't escape being a Ceaușescu. Like her brothers, she enjoyed luxuries unimaginable during the austerity of the 1982. While Romanians stood in breadlines, Zoya never wanted for anything. Nicolae Ceaușescu, born 1951. Widely considered Nicolae's favorite, the presumptive heir. Unlike his siblings, Nicolae embraced politics wholeheartedly. Secretary of the Romanian Communist Youth Union. Later, first secretary of Sibiu County. A traditional stepping stone to higher office. Nicolae developed a notorious reputation. Playboy, violent temper, drunken car accidents, assaults on women, abuses of power. Stories circulated widely among Romanians. In one infamous incident, he allegedly struck and killed a young woman with his car while intoxicated. No investigation, no charges, no consequences. By the late 1982, rumors spread that Nicolae was grooming Nicolae to succeed him. The younger Ceaușescu's ruthless personality and absolute loyalty made him a plausible heir. A dynasty in the making. But storm clouds were gathering. As 1989 dawned, Eastern Europe's communist regimes began falling one by one. Poland, Hungary, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, one after another. Romania's turn was coming. December 1989. The spark ignited in Timișoara. Protests against the eviction of Hungarian Reformed pastor Nicolae Ceaușescu evolved into broader anti-government demonstrations. Ceausescu, returning from a state visit to Iran, ordered a brutal crackdown. Hundreds dead. December 21, 1989. Ceausescu organized a mass rally in Bucharest, expected to reassert his authority. Instead, the crowd turned against him. For the first time, Romanians watched their conductor stand bewildered as boos and jeers interrupted his speech. His face showed confusion, fear. The spell was broken. Within hours, Bucharest exploded into revolution. The Ceaușescus fled by helicopter from the roof of the Central Committee building. Abandoned the capital as protesters stormed government buildings. 3 days of chaos followed. December 25th, 1989. Christmas Day. After capture in Târgoviște, Nicolae and Elena faced a hastily organized military tribunal charged with genocide, destruction of the national economy, personal enrichment at the country's expense. The trial lasted less than an hour. The verdict was predetermined. Both sentenced to death, executed by firing squad minutes later. Their bodies riddled with bullets appeared on Romanian television that evening. The Ceaușescu era had ended, but as Romanians celebrated, an urgent question emerged. Where were the children? Valentin was arrested, December 25th, 1989. The same day his parents were executed. Unlike his brother Nicolae, he offered no resistance. Perhaps he'd expected this. Perhaps he'd heard about his parents already. Though he held no formal government position beyond ceremonial roles, his surname alone made him a target. Valentin was detained at Rahova military prison in Bucharest. His arrest was precautionary rather than based on specific charges. The new government didn't know what to do with the Ceausescu children, so they locked them up while figuring it out. Zoya was also arrested December 25th. Revolutionary forces came for her. She reportedly showed no surprise. Perhaps she'd anticipated this moment. Perhaps resignation had already set in. Like Valentin, she was taken to Rahova prison. According to accounts from guards present, Zoya maintained her characteristic dignity throughout. Didn't plead, didn't cry, just accepted what was happening. As a mathematician with no direct role in governance, her detention appeared more symbolic than substantive. But the surname was enough. Nicolae's experience proved dramatically different. As first secretary of Sibiu County, he initially attempted to suppress local protests using military force, ordered security forces to fire on demonstrators. When this failed, he fled, apparently hoping to escape Romania entirely. December 22nd, 1989. Revolutionary forces captured Nicolae in Sibiu. Unlike his siblings' quiet arrests, Nicolae's capture became a public spectacle. Footage shows him being paraded through angry crowds, visibly battered, bleeding. Revolutionary forces barely preventing mob violence. People wanted to tear him apart. Guards had to protect him from the fury of those he'd ordered shot just days before. Nicolae's detention had greater legal justification than his siblings. As a government official who had ordered security forces to fire on protesters, he faced specific charges related to deaths in Sibiu. In the chaotic months after revolution, Romania's new government organized trials. The National Salvation Front, led by former communist officials who turned against Ceausescu, needed to demonstrate justice. The cases against Valentin and Zoya proved weak. Prosecutors struggled to identify specific crimes beyond family connection. Valentin faced charges of undermining the national economy. Accusations linked to his Football Federation position. Prosecutors alleged he'd illegally diverted funds to support Steaua Bucharest. Evidence of personal enrichment proved limited. Zoya faced similar economic charges, equally tenuous. Her work as a mathematician offered prosecutors little material. Instead, they focused on her lifestyle. Alleged she'd improperly benefited from state resources. After approximately 1 year in detention, both Valentin and Zoya were acquitted, released in late 1990. The court found insufficient evidence either had committed prosecutable offenses. Despite their privileged positions, no crimes could be proven. Nicolae's trial proceeded very differently. As Sibiu's party secretary, he'd issued direct orders to security forces during the revolution. Prosecutors charged him with genocide, the same charge leveled against his father for the deaths of 89 protesters in Sibiu. During his trial, Nicolae maintained an unrepentant attitude, showed little remorse for the deaths, portrayed himself as a loyal official following orders during crisis. This alienated many Romanians, even those who might have viewed him sympathetically. In 1990, the court convicted Nicolae of aggravated murder rather than genocide, sentenced him to 20 years in prison. He became the highest-ranking official convicted for violence during the revolution. Though many Romanians believed his sentence should have been harsher, much harsher, with their parents dead and their surnames synonymous with tyranny, how would these three rebuild their lives? Could they ever escape their infamous legacy? And how would Romanian society treat the offspring of their former oppressors? After release in late 1990, Valentin emerged as the most successful at rebuilding. He returned to scientific work, not at his previous prominence. Understanding his surname would always define him in Romania. He maintained a deliberately low profile. In 1992, Valentin initiated legal proceedings to reclaim confiscated properties, personal belongings, books, photographs, family effects. This began a decades-long legal battle continuing until 2014, when courts finally granted him ownership of some items. Perhaps Valentin's most significant post-revolution action was his custody battle for his parents' remains. For years after their hasty burial in Ghencea Cemetery under false names, the graves remained unmarked. Valentin led family efforts to provide proper burial markers, finally succeeding in 2010. Dr. Alexandru Gay, Slatinianu, a physicist who worked with Valentin in the 1990 seconds, described him in a 2005 interview. He never spoke about his parents unless directly asked. He focused on his work, tried to be judged on his own merits, but the name followed him everywhere. Always. Unlike many children of deposed dictators, Valentin never left Romania permanently. Built a quiet life in Bucharest, occasionally gave measured interviews about his family. Largely avoided politics. Today, at 76 years old, he remains the last living Ceausescu, a quiet witness to both his family's rise and fall. Zoya's post-prison life proved dramatically shorter. After release in 1990, she attempted to return to mathematics. Professional opportunities were limited. Like Valentin, she participated in legal efforts to reclaim family properties. Friends described Zoya's post-revolution years as marked by frequent depression. The execution of her parents, collapse of everything she'd known, left deep psychological wounds. Though she maintained dignity in public, private accounts suggest she struggled to adapt. In 1998, Romanian media reported shocking news. Zoya Ceaușescu had died of lung cancer, just 49 years old. Death occurred at Fundeni Hospital in Bucharest. Valentin arranged a private funeral. Some Romanians speculated the stress of her family's fall and prison experience contributed to her early death. In her brief post-revolution life, Zoya published a single book, a collection of mathematical papers, gave only a handful of interviews. She never remarried after divorcing her husband, who distanced himself during the revolution. No children. With her death, another chapter closed. Music. Nicu's post-revolution story followed yet another trajectory. Initially sentenced to 20 years, he served only 4 before medical release in 1992. During imprisonment, doctors diagnosed cirrhosis of the liver, likely from his well-documented alcoholism. Upon release, Nicu's health deteriorated rapidly. Unlike his siblings, he showed little interest in rebuilding. Instead, gave occasional inflammatory interviews defending his father's regime. These statements further alienated him from Romanian society. November 1996. Just 4 years after release, less than 7 years after the revolution, Nicolae Ceaușescu died of liver cirrhosis at Vienna's General Hospital. He was 45 years old. Reports indicate he'd traveled to Austria seeking specialized treatment unavailable in Romania, but his condition had progressed too far. Nicu's funeral in Bucharest's Ghența Cemetery attracted a small crowd. Former regime officials, curious onlookers. He was buried near his parents' graves, though at that time they remained unmarked. More than 3 decades after the Romanian Revolution, what remains of the Ceaușescu dynasty? One tangible legacy involves ongoing property disputes. The family owned numerous homes, land parcels, personal valuables, most seized during revolution. Through persistent legal action, Valentin recovered some items: family photographs, books, artwork. In 2014, a Romanian court ordered the state to return a hunting lodge and land near Bucharest to Valentin. Highly controversial. Many Romanians argued Ceaușescu properties represented ill-gotten gains that should remain in public hands. These legal battles highlight Romania's unresolved relationship with its communist past. Unlike some former Eastern Bloc countries, Romania never implemented comprehensive lustration laws. Cases like the Ceaușescu properties remained in legal limbo for decades. How do Romanians remember the Ceaușescu children today? Surveys suggest most distinguish between the parents still widely reviled and the children, particularly Valentin and Zoya, viewed more as privileged beneficiaries than active participants in tyranny. Nicu's memory remains more controversial. His role in the Sibiu crackdown ensures he's remembered as more than merely the dictator's son. Yet even his legacy has softened somewhat with time. Younger Romanians have no personal memory of him or his actions. Intriguingly, a strain of Ceaușescu nostalgia has emerged in modern Romania, particularly among older citizens disillusioned with post-communist capitalism. This sentiment rarely extends to the children, focusing instead on perceived stability during Nicolae's early years. The story of the Ceaușescu children reveals how dynastic ambitions can collapse overnight, leaving privileged heirs suddenly vulnerable. But their divergent fates also demonstrate different approaches to surviving the fall of a dictatorial parent. From Nicu's defiance to Valentin's quiet adaptation, what lessons might these stories hold for other children of authoritarian leaders? The Ceaușescu children's story offers a unique window into the aftermath of dictatorship. Unlike many deposed leaders who escaped with families to comfortable exile, Nicolae and Elena's execution left their children to face revolutionary justice alone. Their fates, Valentin's survival, Zoya's early death, Nicu's self-destruction, reflect different responses to catastrophic family downfall. Where Nicu clung to his father's legacy, hastening his own decline, Valentin adapted, found a quiet path forward in the very country his parents had oppressed. This isn't ancient history. This happened 35 years ago. Romanians who lived through the revolution are still alive, still remember the fear, the hunger, the cold winters. The execution footage on Christmas Day. Valentin Ceaușescu still lives in Bucharest, the last remaining piece of a dynasty that thought it would rule forever. His continued presence in Romania serves as a living reminder of how quickly power can vanish. The lesson is clear. Even the most powerful dynasties eventually fade into history, their crimes and privileges becoming footnotes in national memory. The Ceausescu children, once expected to inherit a communist kingdom, instead inherited only its collapse. Their story serves as a reminder of both the transience of political power and the enduring impact of a family name that can never be escaped. No matter how quiet you become, no matter how far you run, some names follow you to the grave. If this story moved you, make sure you subscribe right now. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on how children of dictators should be treated by history. Thanks for watching, and please share this video with anyone interested in the human stories behind political upheaval. These lessons about inherited guilt and the aftermath of tyranny must never be forgotten. These voices must stay loud,